Good afternoon. My name is Jim Scholheim. I'm the Executive Secretary and Treasurer of the AFA. Welcome to the American Finance Association Annual Meeting and Presidential Address. Today I'm going to give you a brief report on, first of all, the election results, the financial situation of the AFA, and some of the major activities that we're undertaking the past year. So for the election, I'd like to, first of all, congratulate our president, Campbell Harvey. President-elect and 2017 program chair is David Sharfstein. Our vice president is Peter DiMarzo. And newly elected directors are Xavier Gabex, Arvind Krishnamurthy, and Lubos Pastor. Many thanks go to the nominating committee, and also would very much like to thank our outgoing directors, Jonathan Burke, Francesca Corneli, and Ivo Welch, and we thank them for their service. In terms of the finances of the AFA, the financial situation remains very good. Last year, we changed our fiscal year end. So from October 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2015, our net income was over $147,000. But when you add in interest income, dividends, and unrealized capital gains, our total income for the same period was around $634,000. Our total assets now amount to more than $15.5 million as of June 30th, and then that represents about a 5% increase over last year. We also, during the past year, had a search for a new editorial team that will replace the current team in the mid-2016. So please congratulate our new JF editor, Stefan Nagel. And co-editors Philip Bond, Amit Suri, and Wei Zhang. And I'd like to acknowledge and thank Ken Singleton, Bruno Bias, and Michael Roberts for their outstanding job over the past few years. The AFA instituted policy in 2015 that all authors of papers submitted to the program be members, and this policy has helped us increase our membership by well over 30%. Thank you. The board approved a new women's initiative at the mid-year meeting in last June. The purpose of this initiative is to promote the advancement of women academics in the field of finance. The group, now known as Academic Female Finance Committee, or AFA, launched their inaugural event, a very successful reception held last evening. I'd like to thank Renee Adams and Michelle Lowry for helping to lead this new effort. And finally, the ASSA meets in Chicago, June 6th through 8th, 2017. I'm sorry, repeat. Chicago, January 6th through 8th, 2017, and in Atlanta in 2018. So I now turn the annual meeting over to our president, Patrick Bolton.
Thank you, Jim. I would like to thank the program chair, Cam Harvey, for organizing an outstanding conference. You have to realize that he inherited a change of regime from previous years. Up until last year, the maximum number of sessions was 54. And this year, the number of sessions has jumped to 78. I would also like to thank Marty Gruber for his work as the association's NBR representative. You're going to hear a sequence of reports, and here's the order in which they will be presented. You will have the program chair report by Cam Harvey, followed by the vice president report by David Sharfstein, and the Journal of Finance editor report by Ken Singleton. And then we'll turn to the awards part of the meeting. Cam.
Thank you, Patrick. I'll be brief. We had a change of regime, given that we've got 18 more sessions. Last year, I said that I speculated that 50% of you thought you were a member but really weren't. And it turns out that number is more like 80%. So if you include the student members, the AFA membership jumped by 73% due to one action. So $37 to be a member, and it's important because you get to vote. We want you to be able to vote and participate. So the total of 74 sessions, the acceptance rate went up, not surprisingly, but it was still fairly low, 15.7%. We had a number of special panels. The AFA lecture was done by Colin Kammerer just before this session. We had 3 sessions, one on the refereeing process, led by David Hirschleifer, that was incredibly well attended. A panel on sports, finance, and economics, led by Toby Moskowitz. And David Yermak led a special panel on cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and the future of finance. So that's basically it. Everything so far has gone well. One thing, you saw the slideshow at the beginning, we do have a special session tomorrow at 1 o'clock in honor of past president and past Journal of Finance editor Rick Green. So that's at 1 o'clock.
So I'm here to discuss the travel grants. This year, we're awarding the travel grants to honor the memory of Rick Green. As you all know, Rick made really important contributions to scholarship in our field through his extraordinary research and his outstanding service to the AFA as JF editor and the AFA president. There were 181 students that were awarded travel grants this year, which was about 30 students greater than last year, 95 from U.S. institutions, 86 from abroad. We spent about $223,000 bringing students to these meetings, where we had a panel discussion to talk about how to have a successful career in financial economics. Ken Singleton, Annette Vissing-Jorgensen, and Eric Zwick were the panelists and discussed various aspects of our profession and gave advice. And can our travel grant winners stand up and so we can recognize them?
So I'm going to give the annual editor's report for 2015 for the Journal of Finance. It was another a good year for the Journal of Finance. The submissions basically were flat, down just slightly, but still well over 1,100, and we appreciate the continuing support of the Journal of Finance on behalf of all of you as authors in terms of submissions to the journal. Turnaround times have been good. We're striving to make them better. The median has been trending down over the last few years, and importantly, there was a significant decline in the number of papers that took over 100 days to review, and we aspire actually to try to bring that down even further in 2016. We have made a few changes in handling papers, and it's had a little bit of consequence for likelihood of getting a paper accepted in the Journal of Finance. The total number of papers accepted rose in 2015 relative to 2014. We expect that actually to continue to stay up and if not increase further during this year. Though conditional on an R&R in the first round, the probability of acceptance also rose in 2015. And partly that came about because the number of R&Rs this year fell a bit in the first round R&Rs fell a bit in 2015. There are a couple of reasons, I think, at least for that, maybe three. One is that we actually, our turnaround times have been fantastic, but we did fall a little bit behind towards the end of this year. So there's going to be a bit of a spike up in R&Rs in the next couple of weeks, and so Happy New Year to some of the authors out there. A second factor this year, not in any conscious way, but the mix of revise and resubmits and reject and resubmits shifted a little bit towards the reject and resubmit, and I think that's just an aberration this year, and so we don't really anticipate seeing that carrying forward in 2016, more like the way it's been all along in the last few years. We have been, we have consciously changed one thing over the last few years, and that's the desk rejection rate at the Journal of Finance. We have been desk rejecting a somewhat higher percentage in the last few years. We've brought it up to 36%, and it's been flat there for the last couple of years, and I guess we imagine pursuing the same kind of trajectory at least through the first half of the year while we continue as editors. It'll be up to the new editorial team on how they want to move forward with this, but that's probably affected the R&R rate a little bit as well. So in terms of how the journal is doing more broadly, the number of papers we publish every year fell a little bit towards the end of Cam's regime. That was, I think, a conscious decision on his part. We have brought it back up to 72 thereabouts, so about 12 papers an issue. I think we anticipated staying around this level, may drift up a little bit this year, but again, that's a conversation we'll probably be having with the new editorial team as well as to what sort of sweet spot we want in that regard. We have, for the last several years, been publishing fewer papers than both the Journal of Financial Economics and the Review of Financial Studies, and I'm guessing that in the near term, this kind of general pattern of somewhat smaller number of papers in the Journal of Finance will continue. But again, with the new editorial team, this might drift up a little bit. That will be their decision. Notwithstanding the fact that we've been publishing fewer papers, our impact remains very high, and we're very pleased by this and grateful to all of you for following the Journal of Finance and obviously reading the papers in the Journal of Finance. In terms of total cites, we fall among all economics journals as number 3 behind the American Economic Review and Econometrica, but not too far behind the number 2 journal. One-year impact factors, which are also a reflection of citations and are also, frankly, quite variable from year to year. Nevertheless, the Journal of Finance is showing very well. At number 2 among all economics journals, behind the QJE this last year, and just above the Journal of Economic Literature, although not very much above. We could call that a virtual tie. 5-year impact factor, which shows much more longevity in terms of the impact of papers being published. We're sort of a firm number 3 among all economics journals behind the Journal of Economic Literature and the QJE. So again, faring very well. That 5-year impact factor is up just a little bit over last year. So that's a strong showing, and again, we're pleased by that and grateful to all of you for the support of the journal through reading and referencing. 2015 was a year of both initiating some new policies and also starting down the path of some additional changes in policies and guidelines for papers submitted to the Journal of Finance. I want to just quickly review them, tell you a little bit about them, and remind you of a couple of changes we made which have not registered so far, I think, generally with the profession, and I just want to underscore a couple of things. We changed our submission guidelines for all practical purposes. This is largely inconsequential, but the next time you submit a paper to the Journal of Finance and click on the I agree to the submission guidelines, you might want to take a minute and just skim through them. They are different, and you'll get your invoice in the mail if you don't read it. No, seriously, do please read through it, because there are some refinements there that are important, and in particular, you are committing to the right to use all of the data in your paper, and so you might want to read through that and see exactly how that's worded and what the expectations are. We have a new disclosure policy, and this also is something that is required when you submit a paper to the Journal of Finance, that you have full disclosures about several potential conflicts of interest that you might be potentially facing in your life. They're potential conflicts of interest. The only requirement at the Journal of Finance is that you declare these potential conflicts. They get entered as part of your submission. They get shared with the referees. But beyond that, we're not ruling out any submissions based on conflicts of interest, just that everything be disclosed. And there are a set of potential conflicts and sort of the details of what's expected of you in terms of disclosure. And that's something that we implemented throughout the middle of the year with some care and considerable thought on the part of the executive committee at the American Finance Association. That's all with regard to potential conflict in terms of consulting activities, et cetera. I think consistent with norms that are now well established, or certainly increasingly established within the profession. One of the major issues, though, that we still face, I think, in our profession at large, is how do we deal with disclosure or distribution of data, of the code used in empirical work, and what should be the replication policies of our journals within the profession. And I'm pleased to say that the top journals in the field, the Journal of Finance, the Journal of Financial Economics, the Review of Financial Studies, the editorial teams of the three journals are actually working together right now as a working group to see if we can't come to mutual agreement on a set of policies that would be applied uniformly across all three journals in this regard. My expectation is that we will end up doing this in phases. There are a lot of very difficult issues here. We're going to proceed slowly, systematically, and give ample opportunity for feedback. But that's something that will be coming up hopefully in the months to come. We'll be working with our executive teams, editorial teams, and then asking more broadly for feedback from the profession about these policies. Again, probably implemented in phases, partly associated with ease of agreement and also ease of compliance, so that we can get some experience with this. And finally, we do have, and it's clearly stated on our webpage, on the Journal of Finance webpage, I think I announced this last year, we have a replication section of the Journal of Finance. It's not something you have seen because we have not actually been inundated with submissions of replications of papers that have been published in the Journal of Finance. The spirit of having introduced this section is that and indeed the spirit of us cooperating across all of the journals with regard to code and data distribution is, I think, that we should subject all of our work to replication and verification, validation by others, and we should try to facilitate that as much as possible in the interest of the strength of our science. And so if you have done work on papers published in the Journal of Finance, if you find difficulty replicating results in ways that materially change the interpretation of the results in the paper, or how the profession, you think how the profession might interpret those results, then please, you should feel free to submit them to the Journal of Finance. They will be reviewed separately as a replication, not as a mainline paper. And if it gets accepted, there will be a subsection at the end of the journal that will indicate replications, just as we do errata, and it'll be published there. Okay? So, as my term as editor is sort of nearing an end, a few more months, 6 more months to go, I have a lot of thanks, and I just want to say a few things here. First, I'm profoundly grateful to the Executive Committee and the Board of Directors of the American Finance Association for giving me this opportunity and indeed responsibility of editing the Journal of Finance. It is a lot of work. It's been a very interesting and continues to be a very interesting experience, and I really am genuinely glad to have had the opportunity to do this. I'm extremely grateful to my co-editors, Bruno and Michael. We set up an arrangement as a team, a collaborative team. Thank goodness for Skype. We have frequently been on Skype around the world discussing our decisions, sharing our decisions, brainstorming about general policy and trends of the submissions that we face at the Journal of Finance. I have learned an enormous amount from this experience. It's like having 2 colleagues who you're constantly engaging with, brainstorming, arguing with, and occasionally agreeing to disagree. But from all of that, I've learned a lot, and I hope they have as well. Our associate editors have been sort of enormously helpful as essentially co-editors, really, in a way, in that they've given us enormous guidance and played a very active role as part of the editorial process. It's really wonderful, I think, and they will have a lot of experience with the Journal of Finance, that 3 of the incoming editors are either currently or were in the past associate editors of the journal, and there is nobody in this room more excited than me about the new editorial team that's about to take over for the Journal of Finance. It's a great team. I think it's just fantastic. Referees, amazingly, there's over 1,000 people in our profession, colleagues in our profession, who've very conscientiously provided referee reports, and of course we're grateful for that, and your continued support of the journal and timely submissions of referee reports. Finally, Wendy Washburn, who is actually here, I think. Is she in this room somewhere? Maybe she stepped out. Over there. She's at the back. Okay. Maybe that hand should stand up. She is an invisible person behind everything, and let's just give Wendy a big round of applause. This job would be almost impossible without her conscientious service to the profession, and it really is professional. It's fantastic. So, all of you, thank you for supporting the Journal of Finance through the many ways that you do, indeed the American Finance Association, including being here today. It's been great, and will continue to be for the next few months and beyond, working with all of you. So, with that, it's time for me to announce the best prizes, or the paper prizes for 2015 for the Journal of Finance. I'm going to call upon my co-editors to to step up here, if they will, to help with this process. We have the Brattle Group prizes, and Stu, do you want to come up as well, and other representatives for Brattle, if you'd like? And then we'll do the Monday Smith-Breeden prizes. As in prior years, the associate editors nominated the papers for these prizes. This year, what we had them do was submit rank-ordered nominations of 3 papers from the issues in December through October 2015. And we tallied up all of their votes, and then among the papers that they had nominated, we added in our votes. But what was really striking this year is that for the first prizes, both of the Brattle and the Monday Smith-Breeden prizes, there was a remarkable amount of consensus among the associate editors as to the prizes that should be given out this year. So let me start working down them, starting with the distinguished papers for the Brattle Prize Group. So the first distinguished paper from the Brattle Prize is A Comparative Advantage Approach to Government Debt Maturity by Robin Greenwood, Sam Hansen, and Jeremy Stein. So if you could come to the room, that would be fantastic. And the second distinguished paper is Wall Street Occupations by Ulf Axelson and Philip Bond. And the first paper prize, which excites me, is Does Going Public Affect Innovation by Shai Bernstein. So thank you very much to all of our winners and the representatives of the Brattle Group. And now let me move on to the Monday Smith-Breeden prizes. The first distinguished paper is Do Prices Reveal the Presence of Informed Trading by Pierre-Colin Dufresne and Vyacheslav Foss. I don't know. Yeah, is Doug Breeden here by chance? Would you mind coming up, Doug? Sorry, it was an oversight. I'm glad you're here. So the second distinguished paper for the Smith-Breeden prizes is Financial Intermediaries in the Cross-Section of Asset Returns by Tobias Adrian, Eric Otula, and Tyler Muir. And finally, the first paper prize is the pre-FOMC announcement drift by David Luca and Emmanuel Munch. So thank you very much, and let's thank again all of the prize winners one last time. And that's the editor's report for this year.
First of all, people who are back in the room, there are plenty of seats here, so please move forward and occupy some seats and don't stand in the back. So, as an outgoing president, my last duty and privilege is to do two things. One, to announce the fellow for this year, and forever, but is appointed this year, and the winner of the AFA Morgan Stanley Prize. So let me, for those of you who are sort of new to this, let me give you a little bit of a context. So I'll start with the fellow. In the year 2000, the American Finance Association board decided to honor and recognize people who have given a distinguished contribution to the field of finance. And so every year, through a complicated process, is appointed one new fellow. And this year, we are going to appoint not only somebody who gave an enormous contribution to the field of economics in general, but really change, in my view, in a dramatic way, the field of finance, Oliver Hart. So please, Oliver, come and...
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Right. Yes. Thank you very much. This is a lovely honor, and I'm really happy to receive it. It's particularly meaningful for me because I feel I've had a connection to finance throughout my career. Part of this is through my research, which is frequently overlapped with finance. Examples are my thesis on incomplete markets, my papers with Sandy Grossman on takeover bids, my papers with Sandy Grossman and John Moore on incomplete contracts and control, and my work with John Moore on debt contracts. So some of this research was squarely in finance, some of it wasn't, but even when it wasn't, it turned out that often the most fruitful applications of the ideas, to the extent there were any, were to finance. So that's one connection, but there's also an important second connection, which is through my students. I've been fortunate enough to have had several students who've gone on to very distinguished and prominent careers in finance, and in fact 3 of them are on the podium, Luigi, Patrick, and David. And as I look around, I see some others in the audience. So this has been enormously satisfying and another connection. In spite of these connections, I would say up to now, I felt a bit of a fellow traveler with respect to the finance profession. But I think now with this award, I've been promoted to a card-carrying member of the finance profession. So I thank you very much for the honor and for the card. Thank you.
So in 2008, the board of the American Finance Association decided to give every other year a prize to a member of the association that had demonstrated significant, actually outstanding thought leadership, measure in the dimension of fundamental impact, the sustained impact, and the broad impact of his or her research. And this year in particular, thanks to David Shastri, we have changed and improved the procedure by which prizes are awarded. So it's a very complicated procedure, but similar to the one that the American Economic Association has chosen for the Clark Medal. And so it's my honor to announce the AFA Morgan Stanley Prize winner. By the way, this prize is very rich, but to the profession, not to the winner, in the sense that it's $200,000 that the winner can allocate to the research center of his or her choosing. Is my privilege to sort of announce the winner is somebody to whom we are all deeply indebted and who is at the top of the pecking order of people in finance, Stu Myers.
This is a great honor for me, and I'm proud that not only Morgan Stanley, but my colleagues at the AFA have selected me for it. If I had the time, I would thank all of my mentors and advisors over the years, starting with Alex Robachek. But I don't, and I don't have time to list them, much less to give them justice. Nevertheless, Luigi said I ought to say something useful. So I'm going to say a few words about corporate finance, which is my specialty if you define it broadly enough. Like Caesar's Gaul, corporate finance is divided into three parts. There is theory, there is empirical work, and there's normative work. And normative work is work that helps us understand how to do it. That is to say, how to help a practicing financial manager do his or her job. And I have been exceptionally fortunate not to have specialized in any one of those three parts. I've done theory, but looking back, I'm also very proud of the how to do it work I've done, including such topics as valuing pharmaceutical R&D, rate of return regulation, capital allocation and pricing and insurance, and many other topics which, although you might think of them as just applied, I've found always challenging and interesting. And if you do figure out how to do it a little better, it's very satisfying. I've not done as much in empirical work, but I've kept up a serious intellectual interest in it. So in a way, if I were to brag, I would say I've spanned all three parts of the field. Now, having said that, I can now offer a piece of avuncular advice to everybody in the room who's younger than me and working in corporate finance, which is almost everybody. That is, almost everybody is younger than me. Take a careful, hard look at your own work. And if it's excessively concentrated in one of the three parts I've mentioned, find a way to break out. So if you're a theorist and you take a serious interest in empirical work and how to do it work, you will be a better theorist. If you're an empiricist and you take interest in theory and how to do it, you'll be a better empiricist. And if your tastes go to how to do it kinds of work, you'll be a heck of a lot more effective in practice if you also keep track of theory and empirical work in finance. And of course, you could make the same points about our broad field of corporate finance that should look outside itself to asset pricing and derivatives and financial institutions in the broader field of, excuse me, financial economics. Thank you again.